So, welcome to the next episode of Deep Talks podcast, and my today's guest is Feng.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
I met Eric in Prague, and we did a book exchange because we both wrote best-selling books, and we had amazing discussion.
Amazing. 3 pints of beer each.
Yeah. And I was about to ask you, what is your work about? What is the core of what you are doing?
The core of what I do. Wow. I've never get asked this question before. If there is a verse that I hold very strongly, it's my personal mission, which is to be light of the world.
Okay.
And I really believe that every one of us, we have talents, we have skills, we have experiences. And if we can step up and be our own kind of beautiful, we can really make a huge difference in this world.
Okay, it's quite similar to what I do because people are procrastinating their personal growth.
Yeah.
And at the end, they are stuck in the same habits. And basically, they are not enjoying what they are doing in their
and they cannot
jobs.
be the best version of themselves, right?
Right.
Because they're stuck.
So we have quite similar mission.
Yeah.
But your story is that you started in Singapore.
That's right.
Tell me something. What is the main difference between Singapore and other countries? You are studying in the US, so what is the main difference between?
I think Singapore, we have celebrated. We found our independence in 1965, right? So if you calculate it, we have not much history. So most of us, the young generation today, we see prosperity. We have not seen any suffering. Well, the only suffering we have is there's no Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So it's horrible. If you lose your phone, there's no Wi-Fi, or you can't find a job you want. It creates a lot of distress for young people, which if you think about it, it's not a good thing because there are a lot bigger issues in the world more than just Wi-Fi and your friends not liking your Instagram post. So my sense of Singapore is that many young generation are not aware about the global issues. They are like frogs in the well. Well, internet helps, but I see many of my peers, they are constantly looking to work in cushy jobs or nice countries like Sydney. They want to work in Europe. But really, the growth in Asia is not in those places. The growth in Asia is in places that you probably would not want to go. For example, Cambodia, right? A third world country. But that's where opportunities are. That's where things are booming. So I feel that the biggest challenge for young people today is learning how to be sensitive about global issues, learning how to communicate with people of diverse cultures so that they can rise and lead.
That's very important in my mission too, to help people to understand differences and be able to think about big problems that we as a global society and the global citizens have. So that's very near to my soul to solve these problems. And I have a friend from Singapore, and she told me that schools in Singapore are very
academic,
focusing on results rather than purpose.
Yes.
So
root learning.
Yeah. So is that true?
It's changing. It's changing. So I'm born in 1982, right? So I belong to the sandwich generation where Facebook was still very new for us. So we're in a generation where we are still learning a lot about memorization, learning a lot of learning subjects like math and science. However, the generation today, so we're talking about children who are probably 6 years old right now, they're learning different things.
Oh, that's cool.
They're learning how to learn.
Right.
They're learning life skills like entrepreneurship at 6 years old. So I think that education takes a generation to change, right? It's like shifting Titanic. You see an iceberg, but it takes you a while to change. I believe about 20 years ago, the government in Singapore already see the trend that the key skills that's going to help us survive in the future is not academic skills.
Wow.
It's not just memorization. It's critical thinking. It's social skills. It's entrepreneurship. Yet our parents don't see that. Therefore, things take time to change.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I'll give you a very good example. I'm a brand ambassador for Vans, right? Vans shoes. So if you guys can see this pair of shoes, it's actually white, but I colored it. So you can actually buy a pair of Vans shoes in any place in the country, and they'll offer you paint brushes, and you can paint, you can put stuff on it, do your art. We tried to do that in Singapore. Parents say, no, my kids are not good in art, so they can't draw. Oh, but it's okay, you can doodle, you can do any, no, they're not talented in art, you should not even try.
Okay.
that's a very good example of what's happening here in Singapore.
So, but the movement is
It's changing.
It's changing. So
But it
that's very
requires
good.
parents. You see, I mean, no matter how evolved schools are, we don't spend most of our time in school. We spend most of our time with our grandparents. We spend most of our time with our parents. So if the parents and the grandparents are not enlightened, the children will not be enlightened. That's why we need enlightened parenting.
But still, like kids are influenced by social media, and you have more than 100,000 followers on Facebook. So you can do a change too. So what is your mission as a ambassador or as an influencer?
For me, you see, a little bit about my background. So I have a lot of different ambitions. I wanted to be a taxi driver because my dad is a taxi driver. Also, a little bit of history. My great-grandfather was a rickshaw puller.
Okay.
Right? My grandfather was a trishaw rider. My dad was a taxi driver. So since young, I thought that my destiny is in transportation.
Okay.
So when I was young, my dad would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always say, Dad, I want to be like you, taxi driver. And he would knock me on the head and he'd say, son, you got to dream bigger, right? He's trying to do his cycle.
Bus driver.
Yeah, big dreaming, exactly. So I actually told him I wanted to be a bus driver. But I think I was very impacted when I was in grade 2. So for you, grade 2 would be about 7 years old.
Okay.
I was the youngest and the smallest in my class, so naturally you get picked on a lot. And I remembered a lot of times, I would not be happy in school. But I was good in my studies, right? Which makes me even less popular.
Right, yeah.
And I was the class monitor. I was a teacher's pet. So whoever talks, I would tell my teacher because that's my job. And that's worst.
Yeah.
So one day I was bullied so bad and being called so many names. Nobody plays with me in school or in canteen. Nobody picks me for sports. So I'm always the last one to be picked. And usually they were like, okay, fine, Eric. That kind. One day, my primary 2 teacher, Miss Young, I was her first class. She was the first time teaching us. She put me aside after school and she said, Eric, I know what's going on in school. I don't care what they have said to you. They are young, they do not know what they're talking about. I'm older, I know what I'm talking about. You are going to be someone awesome when you grow up.
Okay.
Just remember that.
So she was your first mentor?
Yes. I never thought of it as that way. But yeah, she's actually my first mentor. Yeah. I'm still in touch with her after 36 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's still teaching. And I told myself I want to be like her. I want to be a teacher. And it's crazy, So I studied really hard. And then in high school, in Singapore, high school, it's in the morning. From 9 to about 1 o'clock, right? No, 7 to 1 o'clock. So from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock, the classrooms are empty. I would sneak into the classroom and teach myself.
Wow.
So I'll play with the chalkboard, back then it was chalkboard. I'll play with the transparencies and teach myself to revise. One day I got caught by a teacher and he was like, what are you doing? Why are you talking to yourself? I said, I'm teaching. He said, if you really want to teach, you should teach your friends. I started running remedial classes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then my tuition teacher found out and she gave me a class to teach. And that was how I found my passion for teaching.
So that was the beginning of your career as a keynote speaker.
Back then, there's no such thing as keynote speaking, but the idea of teaching, helping people do well in school was fun for me. Yeah, and that's why I say you're right. Mentors really do lead you. And I think because as I grew up, I suffer. I want to be a professional speaker, right? But you see, being a professional speaker in the early part of the century, which is like early 2000, is difficult because social media was not a big thing, which means you need to be old, gray hair, no hair to be a professional speaker. What, us?
Yeah, I guess that we started in the same years, so we had the same struggle.
Yeah. And so circle back to your question about what is my mission. I've been a nobody for a very big part of my life. A nobody. I've always been pushed aside. I've never been picked on. And it creates that force that I want to be a somebody. And now that I have a little bit of influence, I want to help the rest of the nobodies out there. Right, and to tell them that, with a little bit of confidence and self-awareness and harnessing your talents, you can be known, loved, and respected, and then be a person of influence.
Okay.
And that's my mission, from a nobody to somebody.
So, and how studies in the US changed you? What was the impact of that?
Huge. You see, in Singapore, our parents will always say when we go to school, don't talk. Shh, don't talk.
Okay.
Don't make so much noise. Mom, why is the moon round? No, shh, don't ask those stupid questions. Right, keep quiet. So in back then in parenting, my time, keep quiet, don't talk, listen to the teachers.
And follow
rules.
Right,
If the line goes this way, you don't question, right? And then I went to America. you actually are graded according to how much you talk.
Okay.
Like you have to ask questions in class, you have to participate. I was culture shock for me, and the professor says this. He said, if I look at your name and I don't recognize who you are, you're gonna fail my class.
Okay.
And so I was in Wharton, right? And everybody is brilliant there. And so people would just raise hand for silly reasons to make a comment, which is like, duh, it's an obvious comment. Why do you need to like interrupt the class? Could you just let the professor talk? I struggle a lot in trying to make myself known and raising my hand and to make a statement. I was like one of the rare Asians in the class. English was probably, I speak English, but not as well as them. And it was huge. It was a problem for me. But because of that, I joined Toastmasters.
Okay.
Yeah, I joined the US Toastmasters. Because
to explain to our listeners, what is
okay. Toastmasters is a international organization that trains you in public speaking and leadership.
Yeah.
So
there are even in Czech Republic, in Prague,
I believe so.
in New York. So it's a global organization.
So I was in the Singapore chapter, but I told myself that I should join the US chapter. It was deeply uncomfortable because you think about it, my friends were partying every night, and I could have joined my friends. I would have been so comfortable. But I remember every Tuesday or Wednesday, I will walk from my office down to the Market Street. Market Street is where the Toastmaster is. And I'm the only Asian there. And there are like 25 other Americans. And I'm there to learn public speaking. But I tell you, it was one of the best decisions of my life. Because I met a stand-up comedian there. And his name is Akash. And he passed me a book by Larry Wingert. So Larry Wingert is a professional speaker. And it says there 60 rules that will help you be a great speaker. Rule number 1, deliver a good speech, a very, very good speech. In other words, it's about mastery. Work on one speech and keep delivering it until you get good, the 10,000 hour rule. Rule number 2, tell everybody about that speech. And that was the 2 things I still remember till today, mastery and magnification. But if I have not went there, I would not have become a speaker and have that knowledge. Yeah.
Those advices are great because amazing. I feel the same. Last year, I did more than 110 talks in 1 year. And I still feel that it's all about mastery because you can improve basically everything. You can have a better quotes, you can deliver a better speech in terms of emotions, you can have a better stories, you can be funnier, but you never reach the 100% mastery. No, it's forever.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's a process.
And that's why I feel that the reason why many people do not persist in mastery is because they don't enjoy the process. They enjoy the outcome.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So the outcome for us would be being able to speak at maybe a nice, like for me, All Phones Arena in Sydney would have been a dream place. But so we are so caught up with speaking there, but we don't enjoy the process. So every day we're upset. Yeah. But if every day you're learning about how to get better at speaking English or learning better at using better quotes, you actually unconsciously become really good.
Yeah, in my experience, focusing on process rather than the destination is one of those key ideas. If you fully understand, it can change your life forever.
Yes.
Because if you enjoy the process, you have much more positive emotions. That means that you are more creative and you are in that state that time stops for you. And psychology calls this state of flow. And I really think that this is the key to mastery, because if you enjoy the process, you are improving, so
and you
are
keep working
enjoying it even more.
Yeah.
And it's like feedback loop that reinforces itself. So,
correct.
So this is one of the core ideas how to improve everyone's life. So, do you have any other big ideas that you somehow found in your during your journey?
I think one of it, which it's still unfolding for me, is that when you are tough on yourself, life becomes easier. And
that's a great quote.
Yeah, and when you are easy on yourself, life becomes tougher. And it circle back to Singapore, right? Or to myself. I live in a. I mean, I don't come from a well-to-do family, but I don't come from a poor family either. So I live in a very normal life, right? I don't suffer much. I get a roof over my head. I don't have dramatic stories about having to beg for food. Because of that, I'm not conditioned for pain.
Right, yeah.
And that's my biggest disadvantage. Yeah. If you look at a lot of successful people in our lives, they've been through really, really shitty breakdowns. Right. Now, of course, some people, they stay there, but those that rises, these are the real champions.
It's like immune system. The immune system needs to conquer some germs and bacteria to be strong. And your physical, or not physical, your mental immune system should be able to survive some bad moments in your life. So if you live just perfect life, I think that you are very in a danger of, if something happened, you are unable to solve
it. I'll give you an analogy that I really love, right? An egg, right? If the pressure comes from outside in, the egg becomes food. But if the pressure comes from inside out, the egg becomes life. It becomes a chick.
All right.
So it's the same thing in life, that if we intentionally, systematically create stress from inside out, we create life for ourselves and life for other people. If we stay the way we are, people are going to exert their force on us, and that's when we crumble.
Is that normal in Asian culture that parents push their kids and they are then unable to push themselves? Because this is what I feel here sometimes, like that parents, they have their ambitions and they push their kids. And after they
project it to their kids.
Yeah, after the kids graduate or after they find a job, they are unable to push themselves because the whole life they were pushed by their parents.
Yeah. I think it's convenient to say that that's the way it is. I see changes. I see like my friends who are now parents, they don't do that to their kids anymore.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
But you see, that's why I say that at the end of the day, right, to prevent intergenerational curse, it's self-awareness. It's being aware that if you continue doing what you do, that's a big hole that you're going to get yourself into. And if you're aware, and then you can stop yourself, and then you can change the course of your destiny, and therefore change the course of your children's destiny as well.
Right.
But if we are not awakened to that, we are screwed up because our parents, like we have screwed up relationship because our parents have screwed up relationship. I have a screwed up career because my parents have a screwed up career. If we don't see that link, it perpetuates itself.
And I really think that this is even a solution of how to help people to understand even global threats, because self-awareness is the beginning to understand the world better and understand that you are important part of everything. So if we want people to take more about climate change, they should be self-aware about themselves, because if they are not aware about themselves, how to make them aware about the global issues.
Exactly. If you cannot even take care of yourself or be aware of yourself, how can you be aware of everything else, right? I see another angle as well, that ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is dangerous. Because if you're ignorant, you subject yourself to be controlled by others.
Right, yeah.
And actually, isn't that how like political agenda happens, right? And fake news. I love the conversation. Maybe you can talk more about it, about critical thinking. And many of us don't think. Right? We assume, or we're lazy.
Because it's easier to not to think. It's a product of laziness, I guess, because the brain, for the brain, it's easier to just grab the information that supports what you already think.
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias, exactly. And think critically, to ask questions, to doubt things, it's much more difficult in terms of energy, in terms of your effort. So if you are lazy, it's easier to not to think critically and to just adapt what the others are saying.
And you end up being a mindless drone, which is okay.
Mindless drone,
which is okay if the leader is a good leader.
Oh, right, yeah.
But if the leader is not a good leader, then you're going to be used to create harm to the world.
If we see what leaders we have in politics around the globe, I don't see that many good leaders, and it's quite sad because, for example, like I know that there are some good leaders in business world, but in politics it's much worse. I don't have that many people that inspires me. That there are like what we call the moral leadership with values. There are not many of politicians with strong values.
Really? Have you read about our mentor minister Lee Kuan Yew?
Okay, maybe in Singapore you are.
We have a great leader. I mean, he turned a fishing village. What?
I want the same politic here.
He turned a fishing village into a bustling city. He turns a little red dot into an important place that even a person like you from Czech Republic is aware of.
Wow.
I think fundamentally the reason why business leaders seem to do better is because they're very clear that if you run a business, you run it for profit. It's legit, right? Even though today we believe young people support businesses that are also more globally conscious. Right. Yeah. But that's another thing altogether. The problem is people enter politics for the wrong reason. People enter politics because they want to be in power. People enter politics because they want to control, or they want fame or money. Wrong place. Wrong place, because politics is meant for you to help people, service. but you cannot combine profit and service at the same time. You ruin two wines, good wine, you combine, you ruin it.
Yeah.
So I suppose maybe the intent of why they enter politics is wrong.
Yeah, what I see is a movement in corporations that they are trying to take care about the big issues too. For example, like 2 weeks ago, I think that was CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, and other CEOs of big corporations. They stood up and they told something about that companies should not only focus on money and growth on a stock exchange, but they should even tackle the big important issues.
And actually, think about it, right? These days, right, companies are actually more powerful than countries.
Right. Yeah.
Right. A company, just think Pepsi or Apple. They're everywhere. They combine the GDP. I think they can fight some of the countries. So there's no boundaries anymore. So I'm so glad that they are a lot more conscious, and they're free from the political agenda, right? And maybe things will change because of them.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I would want to see some good change in a society, and if corporations are those that will push it, I'm fine with that. Maybe it's easier way that to change political systems.
I think it all starts from individual. People need to start to care more than themselves. Recently, I read a book that I was meditating on this morning. A lot of our suffering comes from self-obsession.
Right.
Depression, fear, it's all self-obsession, obsession. If we start to obsess about things bigger than ourselves, we actually open up a whole playing field for us to make a difference in people's life. And so if people can care more about others, then I don't think we will have any politicians who can control us.
So, and yesterday we discussed some interesting idea, and we were comparing that Japan is very clean and Singapore is very clean too.
Am I going to say that in video?
Can you share
I'm sorry.
This idea with us, because it was it was very interesting.
I'm not going to show this segment to we'll cut away all the Singapore mentions, like the Singapore parenting, and then just for your audience. Because sometimes I tell you the truth hurts, okay? People do not like to hear the truth. Okay, so backtrack, you were saying that Singapore was clean and Japan was clean, and I said there's a difference. The difference is Singapore is clean because we pay a lot of money to hire foreign workers to clean up after us. Okay. We have a dustbin every 100 meters away. So environment, I mean, you know environment trumps willpower, right? That we are forced to put our litter in the dustbin because it's just there. Okay. However, try putting a Singaporean to a place where there is no law that you can litter and no one's going to catch you, no one's going to judge you. See what happens. Yeah, and I know Japanese, they do not have a lot of dustbins everywhere, but they would bring a little small bag. Right. And they'll put it in their pocket or their bag, and when they have trash, they throw it inside, and then they recycle. So that's the reality. We are just very well taken care of. Okay. Yeah. So the government takes care of us, and they set up a lot of rules. We are a deterrence country, right? People say that Singapore is a fine city. We fine you for everything, right? You chew gum, we fine you. You litter, we fine you. You do bad stuff, we fine you. But the problem is when you do that, it's a carrot and stick issue, right? So because of the stick, therefore you don't do it. But when I put you out of an environment where there's no carrot and stick, there's no intrinsic motivation for you to do good.
Right, yeah.
That's
and it was
where I'm
very, very important idea, I think, to help people to have intrinsic motivation into things.
Yeah, that means to govern yourself and not to have a government to govern you.
Yeah, right. So
that's why.
Thank you for sharing this story.
Yeah, it looks like I probably will not be able to go back to Singapore. I'm gonna camp here. I'm gonna set up my bed here.
Well, I think that still your government is not crazy than in other countries. So
no, they're awesome. I think they're awesome. I mean, there is no perfect government, but their heart is in the right place. Their heart's to serve. Right now, can they will serve in their world of biasness? That's true. But they're serving. They're not corrupt. Right. And that's fundamentally the most important thing I feel a government should be. Yeah. If they're thinking about themselves, well, all screwed. We're in trouble. Right. But you see, I think our government is the kind of parent that loves their children so much that wants to give their children the best, that end up the children become very, that we're not self-reliant anymore. We start to have this whole entitlement mindset. Like, oh, I've been so well taken care of by my government. It takes only a couple of minutes for me to set up a company in Singapore. If you want to get from one place to another, there is transport system. Oh, if I negotiate with you, you cheat on me, I'll sue you. And the government will support me. But try doing business like that in China. In other parts of the world, you're dead because there's no government that will take care of you. You're on your own.
Right.
So you see, the whole idea is that when you're too well taken care of, it's also not a very good thing because you lose a lot of survival skills.
Okay, that's very cool. It's for me very important to hear that you can have those kind of system that basically works and people like their government.
Yeah,
it's so unusual.
Oh, really?
Around the globe. Yeah.
Oh, you should talk to most of the Singaporeans. I mean, we I think we would not say, we might disagree with some of the policies, that's just very normal, but we all agree. Even I believe, even the opposition, I mean, people who do not vote for the government will never think that our government is corrupt. They will just disagree, or they always believe that absolute power corrupts. So if you talk to any Singaporean who says that I would not vote for the ruling party, one of the reasons simply because they want to have a check and balance for the ruling party. That's it.
That's cool.
I mean, it's better to have just somebody check on you, even though you're doing good, but it's nicer. Because if it's all you,
that's cool.
Then what's going to happen, right?
Okay. Thank you for this discussion. And now I want to focus more on you and your personal values. And I want to discuss your mentors. What were the best lessons you learned from them? So tell me, let's start with your mentors. So you told me that you had a lot of mentors in your life. Tell me what were the core...
I have one. So I've been in this professional speaking career for 11 years. And the first few years was really, really tough because people judge you, and it's natural for them to judge you that you're young, you're inexperienced, and did not have a bestseller yet. Yeah. You know, it's not like I have a bestseller and then I go into professional speaking. I started from ground zero, right? So I was very close to giving up. And one day at an event, I met Ron Kaufman. So Ron Kaufman is an amazing professional speaker, and he's US from America, but he's now based in Singapore. He talks about service. I'm not too sure if you've heard of him before. And he said something to me. He said that, you know, nobody appreciates you until you become a somebody. That's the rule, right? So I said, well, then how do I become a somebody? Well, you got to work on your brand, work on your personal brand. And thank God for Facebook. So I started posting videos of myself teaching public speaking back then on Facebook. I remember my first video, I probably only have 10 likes, very little likes. But he said something to me. He said, Eric, you are not an influencer, the typical influencer where they earn money from sponsorship. So you need a lot of people to like your post, right? But for us, every like is an endorsement. Every like is a potential speaking gig. And I remember on my third video, somebody called me from a university in Singapore, called me and said, hey, I saw your video and I thought you'll be a very good fit for us. And you know what's the best part? She did not even like my video. So I realized in Asia at least, people are passive consumption of social media. They look at your stuff. They might not necessarily like your stuff, but they're seeing your stuff. So that was my first lesson in personal branding. Before you get hired, you need to be visible. Invisibility is your biggest curse, right? If nobody knows you, then there's no basis for them to like you and hire you. So social media allows us to put ourselves out there. In the past, we have gatekeepers like editors, producers. So if they don't like you, you're done. You have no platform.
Right.
But today in social media, it's free for all.
Right.
And so I think my turning point was when I started, putting myself out there and working on being a somebody. But that's only part one of the story. So he gave me a lot of advice, but I seemed to not have a breakthrough. Right? I was getting some gigs and all that, but there's no breakthrough. One day I visited him and he looked me in the eye. He said, Eric, I think I know why. I said, what do you know? He said, I know what's the problem. He looked me in the eye. He said, I've been teaching you how to be a somebody. But let me ask you a question. Do you even see yourself as a somebody?
Wow.
That was part two of his advice. Many years later, he said, Eric, until you see yourself as a somebody, nobody will ever see you as one.
But it's very difficult to change this mindset.
Huge, because there's so much baggage, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I remember one of the homework he gave me was he took a piece of paper. I was at his place. He said, "You're gonna write down everything you like about yourself. I'm gonna make breakfast." So he went out make breakfast, and I was like writing stuff. And halfway through, I teared, and I teared not because I was moved by what I wrote. I teared because I could not write a single shit.
Okay.
And I was like, "What's wrong with me? I cannot even appreciate myself." And also I realized I now know why, because I judge myself based on how people judge me. I've never had an honest, independent opinion about myself.
Okay. Okay.
And that was a wake-up call for
And
me.
how to start with that? How to like what is the best tool or something to change this mindset?
Well, I think first of all, we need to surround ourselves with people who believe in us.
Right.
That means the environment first. Because think about it, we can't, babies can't walk when they grow up, right? So they need parents to nurture them. So it's the same thing for us. So our ego or our image of ourselves is like a little baby, right? It needs a lot of assistance at the beginning because we probably have not had a healthy outlook of ourselves because we have of traumatic things that happen to us.
Right. Yeah.
So we need to find people who, like mentors, teachers, sometimes not parents, but friends who truly see the best in you. You may not see it yet, but they see it. Hang out with them because you need their help, and then you build your own strength. So start working on things. I always tell people that number one, surround yourself with people that believe in you. Number two, start being aware about your strengths.
Right. Strengths are very important.
We're in a culture of trying to improve ourselves, but I believe that it's a much healthier culture to enhance what we're already good at. Right? Think about it. If a dog is gonna try to be a rooster, he's gonna be a horrible rooster. Rooster trying to be a lion, or good luck. Right? So be the best rooster you could ever be.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why I like Strength Finder. I like all the assessment tools that identify your values, your thinking, and then you start asking yourself, like, these are all my skills and strengths and talents. What in the world can I do to serve using my talents? And then when you start creating results in your talents, confidence grows up.
Yeah, I really believe in strengths because to fight your weaknesses is very frustrating because it doesn't give you positive emotions because you only have struggles. But if you are like empowering what you already have, you have a lot of positive emotions because you already know that you are somewhere and you are just improving it.
Exactly.
So that's a whole different story.
Yeah. So so that's it. My mentor's advice. Part one, the world doesn't appreciate you until you become somebody, right? Part two, but you have to first see yourself as somebody before the world starts seeing you that way.
And this begins with finding strengths.
Your strengths, loving yourself, appreciating yourself, warts and all, meaning to say that you have to also accept the dark side of you. That we all have weaknesses, right? And someone once asked me, Eric, you're very positive. How do you do it? Is it because then I tell them you have to have a positive self-image. He said, also, does that mean that all the bad things about you don't look at it? I say, no, you do work on it at some point in time if it sabotages you.
Right.
If it sabotages you. But we need assistance when we look at our dark side. It's like going to the sea, right? You need somebody to shine light for you. You need an assisted, a trained psychologist or trained mentor to help you deal with all the shit that you have. Sometimes it's good to leave them buried, but if you unfold it, you better make sure you can put it back together.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, focusing on the dark side can be even that you push the dark side even further. So
and it because it's still energy,
you can be much more depressed than you are.
Precisely.
Precisely.
Yeah. How about you? Well, what was the best advice that you have ever received?
Well,
from a mentor or a book or somebody.
I share one story in my book in the beginning that changed my life, and that was what is called near-death experience.
Yeah.
And I was 18 years old. I was playing basketball, and I had some health issue. And after a few hours, half of my body was paralyzed, and I was lying in bed, and I realized that maybe I'm about to die. And that was so strong to me because I was 18 years old. I thought that I have all life in front of me, but I was in a moment that I was thinking that death is near me. And this changed my life forever because it helped me to recognize what is important and what is not. And since then, I think that I started to think differently. I survived it without any side effects. So luckily, it was few days experience, but it changed my life profoundly because since then I'm trying to find a purpose in my life. So focusing on purpose is much important to me than focusing on social status, money, and material things.
And what's your purpose right now?
My purpose, I was in Czech Republic doing my keynotes. The book was bestseller here. But I realized that if I want to change the world, I have to be a global speaker. I have to do everything globally. Yeah. So I moved to New York 1 year ago, And my mission is really to tackle those big problems, like help people to teach critical thinking, to improve their rationality. Because, for example, climate change, it's not the problem just about the climate change. It's a problem that people are really disconnected and the society is divided. And we have a problem to have the communal knowledge about what is happening.
Yeah.
So it's more a problem about critical thinking in the beginning than the problem of climate change.
Yeah.
So one of my core mission is to spread critical thinking.
Very nice.
And to help people to doubt things, to fight fake news and disinformation, because I think that if you improve your critical thinking, you are less under influence of manipulation,
exactly.
and populism, and so on. So that's the first mission. And the second is to really help people to have a courage to live their own lives according to themselves. So basically, my book, The End of Procrastination, has two main chapters. First is about finding meaning in your life. It's about what I call life vision or life mission. And the second is about willpower and about the courage to really start to do something differently, to change your old habits and have some new habits that are much more positive and constructive and so on. So those are my two
cool.
missions. And being in the US is very tough for me because I left my country, being like best-selling author here. I visited all TV shows here, so I was on the top here.
Yeah.
In the US, I am just no one and starting from scratch. Yeah. And even in the beginning, it was like being without friends there. I moved to New York basically alone, only with my colleague Adela that helped me a lot there, but still we were there, two of us. Here I had a company of 35 people, so the difference was amazing.
Huge, yeah.
And for me, it was the core of my growth. So that's why I'm telling amazing, because for my ego, that was the best teacher to start from scratch and to push yourself again. And that's why I'm telling that now I'm living my book again.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't move to US, I wouldn't be that happy, I think, because I would be maybe happier in the present moment, but in the long term
you won't be, because there's no growth.
Yeah, and exactly, and maybe when I will be, I don't know, 70 years old, and if I didn't move there and if I didn't try to change the whole world, I wouldn't be that happy. So
very true. So
this is the investment. Now it hurts, but for the future, it can be the best.
That's the saying. If it doesn't hurt, it doesn't count.
Right. So basically, that's my mission now. And of course, I want to spread the knowledge even to Asia, because my book was translated into 15 languages, Japanese, Korean, and now the Chinese version is coming soon.
Super. Okay.
So basically,
sorry, I'll help you. I'll introduce you to my network. China, if you want to, Hong Kong, Singapore.
Let's do that, because, for example, Hong Kong, this day, it needs support from other global citizens. Because it's a fight not just for themselves, but it's fight for the future of the world, for the democracy and values that we all believe, like to have a freedom to have a freedom to speak up and not to be afraid of your own government to arrest you. And that's the main difference for me between living in the US or living in other countries, because in the US you have First Amendment and you can criticize even a president and you are not afraid. If you do the same, for example, in Russia, there is a slightly higher chance that the government has some problems with you. Yeah. If you do it in China, it's even worse. And if you do it in North Korea, you are down in a minute.
You're gone.
So, and basically, I want to live in a world that is free speech, and in the world that you can really have your own thoughts in your own head.
But I have something to say about that. See, so in Singapore, people always talk about, in Singapore you have no free speech, right? You know that, right? There's a policy that put out across that no such thing. So you cannot, foreign reporters, you cannot say whatever you want to say and not get in trouble. I think free speech have to come with responsibility,
right?
And maturity. Because give a kid a free speech, but they will say they spout nonsense, right? And they're not responsible for the words they say. So I feel that before we can give a person the liberty and space to say whatever they want, we need to first give them critical thinking skills.
Right. Yeah. It goes together. Like critical thinking is a part.
Otherwise,
of
people are
good
not really giving free
democracy.
speech.
Yeah.
They are just driving the BMW, I call it, bitch, moan and whine. So they're using free speech as an excuse to bitch, moan and whine, to criticize, to bring down people, to lift their own agendas. But people like yourself, whom you are very clear that that everything is grey anyway, right? But you're able to make a stand now. That's constructive. That's different. So I'm worried for people sometimes when they push free speech, but they are not aware about themselves, or they don't think critically, and they just say things they want and not responsible. I think it's dangerous.
For example, there is a case in the US, and it is called 8chan. It's a website that has conversation rooms, and there are a lot of white supremacists that they are sharing videos of killing the others and killing people in America. And they have a discussion if this is a free speech, if this is cool to have those websites that they can spread hate.
Yeah.
So I really believe that free speech comes with, as you said, responsibility and values.
Yes.
If you have a good values, like critical thinking, and you want good for the others and to want to serve, free speech is very important tool to spread love and good values. But sometimes if you have for example, Hitler in Europe, he was elected in a normal democratic process. And then he did hate speech against Jews in Europe, and it ended as the worst war in mankind history. So we have to be aware about guys that they are spreading the hate, and they are dividing people, and there are a lot of leaders like that in a recent global society.
That's why I like when you ask about what are your values, because I feel that leadership today has to be value-centered, value-based leadership.
Value-based
I mean, Hitler was a great leader. I mean, if you define leader as somebody who can influence, oh my God.
Yeah. He had a lot of followers.
Yeah, and he not just influenced people to do things, he influenced people to kill. And people are willing to do that. That's like the best form of leadership if you think about it, right? If you look at a word on its own. However, it's based on the right values.
Right.
Yeah, that and that I felt it's more important. But today, many people look at leaders and go, oh, he's very charismatic. He can communicate well. He's a great leader. Oh, wait, no. These are just surface tools.
Right,
But fundamentally, who he is as a person.
Yeah. So leadership is not just about charisma, it's about values.
No, yes. And so when I teach charisma, people will sometimes think that it's flaky. And I get it. Because I know of bad people who are very charismatic.
Right,
right?
Exactly.
So, but I tell them this. I said that the power of a sword lies with the hand that wields it. Just because someone used charisma wrongly doesn't mean charisma is bad. Now, I think the good people need to have charisma to even the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Otherwise, the bad people will constantly win because they have a little bit more than you.
And maybe sometimes bad people they have a stronger motivation because they have their problems with their ego, so they are much more driven to those leadership positions. So there is a research that shows that normally you have 1% of psychopaths in a normal society, but 5% of psychopaths on a C-level of US corporations.
Oh my!
Because they are driven to those positions because they want to have more power. So basically, we need to teach people that are good that we need them. We need them to be leaders.
Yeah.
Because
to step up.
Yeah. So, and how to motivate people in this? How to motivate people to really start to be leaders of their communities?
Well, I think first of all, they need to be a leader in their own life first. How can you lead others if you cannot lead yourself?
Right.
So I feel that you need to be a good leader to yourself first. And then your sphere improve. I always believe that when you give, more will be given to you. There's this whole, I read it from the Bible. There's a story about how a master gave 3 servants 1 talent, 2 talents, and 5 talents. The first servant was very afraid of losing that talent, so he buried that talent. The other 2 went to use the talent to create more talent. So when the master came back, the first guy said, oh master, you see, you gave me 1 talent, I give it back to you. See, I protect it. The other one said, oh master, you gave me 2, I created 4. The other one 5, I created 10. And then the master said to the last 2 servants, you are good and faithful servants. And because you grow what I've given you, what little I've given you, now more shall be given to you. Now you, the bad servant, I give you 1 and you hide it, I'm not going to give you anything anymore. I see this as literally talents. Like the skills that you've been given. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
But if you have it, more will be given to you. So if you can lead yourself, then then you'll be given people to lead. Like 35 people is a lot of people to lead, you know. And then when you can serve this 35 well, more will be given to you. And naturally, your sphere of influence will grow. So if your sphere of influence is not growing, it's because you're probably not serving, not doing the best you can for that people you have.
So then tell me, according to your experience, what are the values that global world needs the most?
Wow.
That's a tough question.
That's a tough question.
It's the core of this discussion.
I have to say though, I've done a lot of podcasts. I've been interviewed in a lot of podcasts, but there is a very stark difference between a podcast that is done by a European and a podcast that's done by an Asian. Because recently I did a podcast, he's from Vienna, just very close by. He asked me things like poverty. We were talking about poverty and what government is doing about fighting poverty and education. And you were talking about free speech and cleanliness, very big issues. But in Asia, they will ask me little practical stuff like how can I earn more money? How can I be more popular? You know, the how-tos.
Okay.
But it's amazing. And now you're asking me a question that stumps me. Like what do you think the values that the world need? Well, but I can think of one. Fundamentally, I think the world needs to be more love. They need to love people. And let's talk about, because I'm more familiar with the world of sales, right? I feel that if we can start loving our customers more, we would start serving and stop selling. When we love our customers more, we'll start thinking about their point of view. And start creating products that can help them. And anyway, the money you make is the market's feedback of your value. If you're making more money, it's simply because you're giving a lot of value. So I feel that if a salesperson can love their customers, the customers will return the favor and love them back, and it creates a positive cycle. So apply that to the world. If leaders can love people more than love fame and power, they'll be awesome leaders. If human citizens can love the globe like their home, then the world will return love back and it becomes a positive cycle. So if you think about it, all songs sing it, right? Love is the principal thing.
I want to be part of this movement because I really believe...
Is there such a movement?
The same. Let's do this movement.
Yeah, I do not know if there's such a love movement. I know the hippies does that, but I do not know if there's such a world. But wow, yeah.
I think that's the core of all
fundamental. I really
religions
truly believe,
or philosophies. To really respect the others, even if they are different. Like being in New York, it's a great lesson because if I'm in subway, everyone is different. You have a lot of different nationalities, a lot of different religions. I have friends around the globe, and what I feel is that we are all the same. We are not that different.
Yes.
Like I have a friend that is Muslim, I have another friend that is Jewish, I have another friend that is atheist. And at the end, we can have a similar discussion about love, about values, about helping the others.
One time I was chatting with somebody and I said, oh, so you're Muslim, or you're from Muslim. I remember I was a Muslim guy. He said, no, I'm not a Muslim. I'm a global citizen. And I was like, I'm embarrassed. And I said, oh, you're right. Yeah. Because we judge people based on color and we're so used to categorizing people, right? But he's right, because the minute you start seeing that you're a global citizen, your worldview is a lot bigger. Yeah. And do you know a goldfish grows according to the size of the fish tank?
Right, yeah.
So if you put a goldfish in a bigger fish tank, it grows. So if we start to see our world a lot bigger, our influence grows as well.
Yeah. I want to see this change in global society to help people to upgrade their thinking from think in their like small communities and really be part of as we say, we are all global citizens. And if we don't solve the big issues, we are all in a problem.
And the worst thing is because we live in a very instant gratification world, because you think about it, this whole global warming thing is not going to affect you and me. It's probably going to affect your children's children. But we can't see it, you see? So we don't care.
It's very selfish not to care about our grandchildren.
Yeah, but you're right. That's the key. Selfishness. Yeah. If people become more selfless, then maybe it'll be less problem, right?
Yeah. And I have a concept in my mind that I call something like religion 2.0, upgrade the religion and find what can unite all global citizens.
And have you found it?
And I think that's the love and respect. Because if you really love the others and you respect them, that's the clue that can help to understand differences, and that's the way how to solve the division in societies. But for example, US society is very divided. Like those two parties, they cannot have a discussion. And we feel the same in Great Britain with Brexit, in other European countries. And what I think is that if you found some values that can unite people, we can help them to build bridges.
Very cool. I remember Jack Ma. Jack Ma is a very well-known entrepreneur in China, right? And he says that there's no way you can unite people. There's no way. Like, people have different views. You can't control them to think the same way. So the only way you can unite people is to set a common goal.
Right.
Because the minute I set a common goal, everybody focus on this, people of differences start to align. So all we need is to create like you said, a compelling vision for a company or for a family or for an organization. And if people believe it, we all come together. We forget about our differences.
Like companies, they have their company missions and values. And I think that the world should have own vision statement, mission statement.
Oh, that's good. But is that United Nations? Would that be the closest global organization?
Yeah, I was there, and I have some very good friend that is working there as a very high level management rank, and I think that UN is trying to unite.
I think so.
The world, but I think that sometimes they are stuck in those administration stuff, and sometimes they are losing the movement of emotions. So I was there; it was so strong, but at the end, I don't see any like big outcomes.
Tangible outcomes. So there's a lot. That's why there's this joke about NATO, NATO, which is all talk but no action. So no action, all talk, or something like that. Talk only. Yeah. No action, talk only.
Because I believe that it's not about organization, it's about all of us. Because if you want to have a big change in a society, it should be bottom up.
Yeah.
So basically, it's not about to have some centralized unit that is trying to change things. It should be in all of us. So we all need to be leaders of this kind of change.
Actually, if you think about it, it happens in ant colony. Like, yes, there's queen ant, but every ant does their part, and without having they are not connected at all, but yet everything seems to work hand in hand because everybody plays their part.
Yeah, and this seems to be like universal
rule
and universal law of not just physics, but you can find it in biology, you can find it in astronomy, like that small parts unite together to become a part of a bigger.
The problem is the small part wants to be the big part. That's the problem.
Right.
They want to see themselves as God in their own world, right?
Right. So if the cell is selfish, for example, cancer cell is growing and it's killing the body that is part of. So it's very
scary.
In terms of values, it's not a very moral behavior of cancer cell that is killing the body that it's part of.
Actually, that's a very good analogy. Like, if the cell works as what a cell is supposed to be, then there's no cancer cell, right? Then everybody works as one. Yeah. But when the cancer cell decides to do something crazy, and then that's when people die.
Right. Yeah. So the future is about finding people and leaders that can help the others to grow and not to help themselves to grow.
I think it's possible. I've met. I mean, come on. I'm sure you have met people who believe the same thing as you, and with the power of social media. And influence and being able to attract like-minded people together, we can put resources together. We can put our network, our money, our influence. So much things we can do. So much things.
Let's do this.
Yeah. What do you want? This is a good start. This podcast is a good start. Spreading love.
It's a good start to change the world and to change the world with leadership and values.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that we really have very different places that we grew up. We had a very different stories, but at the end,
we
come up with quite the same idea. So thank you very much.
It's a huge pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening. And if you believe the same values, please share this video to as many people as possible. And let's inspire the world.